Good afternoon. My name is Becky Robinson. I'm the founder and CEO of Weaving Influence, and I'm here today with Stacy Feiner for the power of a talent mindset. And we are so happy that you've joined us today. We're going to deal with a few housekeeping items before we begin, but I'm going to first off just show Stacy's amazing book, Talent Mindset. This is the official book launch week for Stacy's book. So we're so thrilled, Stacy, that you've taken time out of your schedule during this busy time to join us to talk about your book and your ideas. For those of you who have attended events with me before, we're going to do today's event a little bit differently, and I'm going to be interviewing Stacy and covering some questions with her, and we're also going to welcome your questions. So I'd invite you to look at the question panel within GoToWebinar and try it out for me. I often ask people to tell me where you're calling in from and what the weather is like, and Chantal is letting me know that it's nice in Ottawa today. So others of you who want to try out the question panel, I'd love to hear where you're calling in from, what the weather's like. Stacy and I actually live geographically quite close to one another. I live across the Michigan border, not too far from Toledo, Ohio, and Stacy is only about a 2.5-hour drive from me. In fact, we had a chance to meet in person just a few weeks ago. Stacy, what's the weather like in Cleveland today?
Overcast, and I see a couple of raindrops on my window.
Couple of raindrops.
Looks like it might be ready to rain.
Oh, and you know, some other folks are saying that there's rain where they are. We have folks calling in from Kentucky, Alabama, West Virginia, Florida. Rose from Detroit is back. And Rose, I don't see any sunshine, so I think you're hogging it over there just a little bit east of me. So thanks so much to all of you who have joined us. I'm sure that we're in for a delightful hour with Stacy. A little bit of background about Stacy. Stacy is an executive coach for the middle market, and she brings psychological strategies to help business owners improve their performance, advance their organizations, and achieve the success they want and deserve. Stacy also addresses complex dynamics within owner-operated companies, family businesses, management teams, and boards. Her methodology solves people problems, clearing the way for driving strategy, growing profitability, and transitioning to the next generation. Stacy earned her doctorate in clinical psychology from the Illinois School for Professional Psychology, her master's degree from Northeastern University, and her bachelor's degree from Hobart and William Smith Colleges. Stacy, it is so fun to be here with you today. Are you ready to begin?
Yes.
Awesome. I'm going to shut off my camera and invite you to do the same, and we're going to focus on our questions and conversation today. The first question I have for you today, Stacy, is I'd really love to hear from you why you wrote this book and what you're hoping to achieve.
Well, it's a great question, Becky, and I appreciate your asking. I just want to say hello to everybody who's joined the call. I want to let everybody know how fabulous Becky Robinson is. She's the CEO of Weaving Influence and has been instrumental in the marketing and the visibility of my book, which is why all of you are here. So thank you, Becky, and thank you, Weaving Influence, and everybody for joining. So, yes, I'm Stacy Feiner, and the first question, say it one more time, Becky. I lost sight of it.
Tell me why you wrote the book.
Yes, why I wrote the book. Well, I am excited to have written the book. Over the past 15 years, probably, I've been coaching executives and business owners. And I've learned that all of them have dreams and aspirations, and they all have specific circumstances that hold them back at different points in their career. And so while the situations are different for each person, the process for achieving the goals are surprisingly very similar. And I found a coaching framework and a coaching formula that works. So I finally decided to formalize my methodology and write the book. And what mostly compels me to have written the book is just that it's really exciting to get the tools and the solutions that have worked in my individual practice into the hands of business owners really everywhere. And it's both a conceptual book and it's a practical book, and the coaching works, and that's why I wrote the book.
I love that. So, Stacy, before we jump into talking about talent management and exploring a little bit about your methodology, I was inspired by wondering, you know, from your perspective in the work that you've done, if you had a magic wand and you could wave it over people who own businesses, what would you wish for those business owners? What do you wish for the people who are on our call today?
Well, that is a good question for you, Becky. A magic wand, huh?
Yes.
If I had a magic wand, I give every single business owner the experience of a high-performing team. I think firsthand experience of an excellent team is the #1 way to protect against settling for less in the future. So to experience the power and the energy, the productivity, and the challenge of a high-performing team, it's just exhilarating. And I think business owners would never settle for less than a great team if they had a firsthand experience with it.
Wow, well, that's a really good wish, and I look forward to hearing more as we continue. Stacy, could you tell us a little bit about how you would define talent management?
Well, talent management, really, strategic talent management is what I've really dubbed my version of this. It's a series of processes designed to help leaders create an environment for their people to do their best work, as #1. And #2, for leaders to get out of the grind of people problems and into advancing the strategic goals of their business. So to untangle from people problems so that people are really the strong drivers of your revenue. I'll also say this because it's really the premise of my book, that talent management is a fundamental platform, and it follows the life cycle of a business. On the one hand, it allows leaders to see talent across the enterprise, understand the capabilities of talent, and then, in good economic times and in bad economic times, a strong bench allows you to move with agility. And I think those are the 3 key components of a high-performing team and the fundamentals of talent management.
So I'm going to go off script for a second and ask you, Stacy, do you differentiate between people management and talent management, and if so, how?
I don't think I differentiate those. I would say I would differentiate certain components of human capital as kind of more tactical and traditional, so things that are required like payroll and benefits and legal components of managing people. Those are kind of the reinforcement or the protection components of the business, the tactical. But then I would say everything about managing talent for advancing your business and aligning talent to your strategy is talent management, people management.
Okay, I think that helps. So, Stacy, I'm wondering, and I don't remember if we have a slide for this or not, but I'm wondering if you can give us a brief synopsis of your methodology. There are 9 centers that you outline, and if you can explain what's different about them and help us understand the magic behind these 9 centers.
Well, I first will say to everybody that the 9 centers of excellence are not novel. So when you see this slide and you see talent acquisition, talent development, and talent deployment, those are the corridors, and there are 3 centers of excellence in each one of those corridors, making up the 9 centers of excellence. And again, they're not novel. I think, these functions have existed in HR for decades, really. I think the unique part of my system is that my system allows business owners to expect different things from these centers of excellence. In fact, my system allows business owners to expect more from these centers of excellence. And I think that's what's unique about my process. When you do one center well, it delivers data that is naturally relevant to all the other centers. So if you're looking at the visual, at the illustration, if you do a good job, and I'm just saying that kind of matter-of-factly, if you're doing exceptional training, if you've built a training platform that's about helping people to think differently, think big, think innovatively, and using multiple different ways of learning, that component of your strategic talent management should be relevant to your recruiting process. And your recruiters should be able to talk intimately about your training program as representing a learning environment. And a learning environment, when recruiters talk to candidates about a learning environment, top talent is attracted to your company. And when you look at performance management is very relevant to succession planning. So all of these things it's kind of a domino effect. Once you get one thing started, it naturally propels you to do the next. And I think that's what's unique about it.
So can you help me understand, Stacy, is this a linear progression? So do you have to first start with your internal processes related to talent acquisition, or can you start this anywhere? Tell me a little bit about that.
I'm so glad you asked. Actually, this is not that perfunctory. It's not that structured. You can start anywhere you want on this talent management continuum. In fact, many companies have a component of recruiting. They have a piece of training. And they probably have some degree of performance management. The others are probably harder to come by in organizations that are not as sophisticated with talent management. So you can start wherever you want. Usually people start where they have their biggest people problem or their people pain. But it can be started anywhere that that a business owner wants to start. You can jump on and off anytime you want.
Can you explain how the strategic plan and the culture fit into these 9 centers of excellence?
Oh, sure. Well, yeah, the strategic talent management, all of these centers of excellence actually are a bridge, and I'm trying to maneuver my slides for the audience. Hold on a second, I missed it. There it is. Sorry, it was right at the beginning. Yeah, so strategy, culture are the 2 bookends to strategic talent management. And basically, you know, a strategy is driven by its people, and a culture is the collection of shared values of individual people. So in order for you to drive your strategy and align it to your culture, your people have to be engaged in a comprehensive process, which I call strategic talent management. They're the drivers of both strategy and culture.
That's helpful, and I love that picture. It's a good visual.
You know, I want to say one other thing, Becky, about this. I think it's a little bit more pointed. Is I think when you talk about strategy and culture, when companies are proactive in engaging strategic talent management, strategy and culture they embody the people who are driving these things. But when business owners are neglectful or they are not paying attention, I think culture becomes reflective of the worst idiosyncrasies of a business owner. So, I mean, the inverse is true. If you're proactive, you can build a culture where people are able to do their best work, and by you know, and the opposite is true. If you're not engaging this process and you're struggling with people problems, it's probably because they're reflecting your worst idiosyncrasies.
That's kind of scary, Stacy. So going back to the 9 centers.
Exciting.
Exciting, yes.
Exciting, it's in their control.
That's true. So what's the magic behind the 9? I asked that when I introduced the question about the centers, and I'm not sure we heard the magic yet. I want to hear it.
The magic of the 9, why 9?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any magic in 9. I think actually I could have added another 3, perhaps. I mean, I think you need these basic 9. Mm-hmm. You know, one way to think about it is if you look at, let me go back here. Sorry, I'm navigating my. If you look at training, performance management, and leadership development, you know, training is how the enterprise engages the enterprise. So the company has a plan for training the enterprise, the whole of the people. In performance management, it's really one-on-one, where managers are engaged one-on-one with their employees. And in leadership development, it's when the organization, the leadership, identifies top talent and provides specific developmental opportunities for promotion and succession planning. So I think all 3 of these have, you know, they're matched up, but I don't think there's any magic necessarily to the 9. I just don't think I could take any of them away.
Got it. So all these things that you're outlining are critical. So what about in an organization? We have someone on the call who is not a business owner, but is wondering, well, what do you do if you're inside an organization that isn't going to allocate money toward training, which is an important part of of talent management. What might you do as someone inside a company like that to help the owners or the leaders see the value in training?
Well, there are two ways to answer it. Well, what I might do if I had access to this person's business owner to influence them, I would probably, yeah, like you said earlier, Becky, I'd probably try and scare them that the cost of not doing this is dramatic and puts the company at risk. And the opportunity when you do invest in this is that it puts your people, positions your people to be your competitive advantage in the marketplace. So I think strategic talent management, when done well, pushes your people to be your advantage. And when done poorly, it creates a risk. But maybe what that person is asking is, what can they do maybe to get training for themselves in an organization that might not be inclined to do that? And I would say three things. One is never wait for your company to anoint you or appoint you as important enough for training. You can subsidize, you can invest in yourself, and you can buy your own coach. You can pay for your own training and invest in yourself. So never wait for your company to determine that you're, quote, valuable enough for this kind of training. And the second thing I would say is, you know, if your company does performance reviews or at any opportunity where you're talking about your achievements, you might say and present, you know, I've looked at the local colleges. They offer a couple of classes. You know, this class is $3,000. I'd be willing to pay for half if the company would invest in the other half, and I believe that these particular goals and objectives would make me better on the job. So you can use certain conversations to leverage and put some skin in the game to get your company to sponsor some programs. I guess those would be the two things.
Those are really fantastic suggestions. Thanks, Stacy. And anybody on the call, if you have questions as we're talking, please feel free to include them, and I'm happy to share those questions with Stacy throughout this hour. The next question I want to cover with you, Stacy, is your book is called Talent Mindset. Can you explain what it means to have a talent mindset?
Well, a talent mindset from when I coach business owners to develop or to emphasize or to evolve into a talent mindset, probably the first thing is to know the value of people and to recognize that it's the people that are driving the numbers. We have such a focus on the financials and the financial reports, and we don't really recognize that there are people that, specific people and groups of people that are driving those numbers. So I would say the first thing would be to rethink what you prioritize in terms of your data and get data from your people. Know the value of your people, recognize that people drive the numbers, and build a bench. Build your bench strength. Then leave the team to drive the numbers. I think there's often an inverse where business owners focus more on the numbers and then kind of hope and pray that the people will get behind the goals and objectives and the metrics. When I think the first thing to do is to guide the people and to develop them to drive your numbers, and really to embrace your goals and objectives, your vision for the company. I think then, that's when you have a bench of people who they know their roles, they know their responsibilities, they know how to win, and they're in it with you.
That's helpful. So related to that, one of our callers is mentioning, Stacy, that he's noticing that there's a greater number of energy companies in financial crisis due to low prices. So these companies invested in talent management before, but during a financial crisis, they cut their funding for the various items on the talent management continuum. What would you say to those organizations, and what do you think the impact of cutting talent management initiatives during difficult financial times might be?
Well, in general, I think, it's a really great question, and I think it's a good point that there are certain industries at any given point in time that would experience economic downturns or challenges, or just kind of the tightening of the belt. And I think when you're in a tough market, already people begin to get worried, they begin to get anxious. Sometimes people confuse the performance of the company based on the environment, the market environment, as a failure of performance, individual performance, a way that a person actually performs their job. And when those things start happening, I mean, morale gets eroded, people get anxious, ideas stop coming forward, people stop looking out for each other. It, and basically the culture of being able to advance your organization in tough times really gets weakened. So I think it's a mistake to underinvest in talent management when you've hit hard times. And I would probably say that maybe even in the good times when it did look like the companies were doing good talent management, they weren't necessarily engaging the employees. They might have been kind of checking the box in terms of talent management. So when the company started to hit hard times, it was just it was just another line item that they thought. So they weren't really investing in talent. They were checking a box, perhaps. I would say the companies that are doing good strategic talent management don't cut on developing talent. In fact, that's when they might invest in it more.
That's very insightful, Stacy. So that leads me to another question. So what are the implications of doing talent management right, and what might be the implications of doing it wrong?
Implications of doing it right? Well, I think I've been talking quite a bit about how what are the implications of doing it right. Doing it right is there are benefits, and just to add that the good thing about talent management is if you're doing it right, it's to your credit, and if you're not doing it well, it's in your control to fix. But I think the implications of doing it wrong, it's just the cost of doing talent management wrong is staggering. A bad hire can cost up to 10 times salary. Good and ready performers who lack clear goals and objectives are likely to perform only 60% to their potential. And that's just sheer lost opportunity. And I think failing to have a succession plan can really cost you your company. So I think there are real financial implications, real costs to not doing talent management well. And I think the upside is, as I've said before, when you have a strong bench, you can deploy talent when you want to grow. You can reposition talent when you need to hunker down and ask people to do variety of work that they weren't necessarily assigned to do in another period of time. And you get people who are thinking innovatively to get your company out of a bind. So I think that's kind of those are the implications of doing it right and wrong.
So one of our listeners is wondering if it's possible for you to share companies you're aware of that really seem to be doing talent management correctly.
I would love to talk about a couple clients. One is there's a company in the west side of Cleveland called Vitamix. Vitamix is a 4-generation company. The CEO is Jody Berg, and she runs it with her cousin and several other family members. Plus, I'm sure she would consider her executive management team family as well, and I believe that she thinks about her employees as her family. And again, she focuses on developing a culture. In fact, one of her principles is if you hire people who have diverse skills but shared values, people come to work not worrying about themselves, but worrying about how to improve other people's performance and how to enhance other people's performance. So she is very committed to that. I have another work with another client in Akron, a company who is growing at about 30% a year for the last several years. So they're really busting at the seams, and they're trying desperately to make sure that their infrastructure keeps up with the growth of the business. And this company had done a number of things having to do with hiring people who kind of could fit the role but weren't necessarily a fit for the culture and didn't necessarily have potential to grow with the company. So I was initially hired to help them hire one person for their leadership team. The process that we designed yielded an incredibly talented woman who's performing, at 100% at all 8 cylinders, and that process we have duplicated, and we've now hired 4 other people with equally stellar performance. And we're also now talking about building a performance management process and a talent management inventory so that the leaders understand where the talent is in the organization, where there are strengths and where there are gaps. And because we can look at the talent enterprise-wide, we can be smart about our decisions for developing it.
Super. So I see a follow-up question from my friend John. He's wondering how talent management works for companies that are very small, so perhaps under 50 employees. Is there anything significantly different in a smaller enterprise, Stacy?
Well, for sure. Again, the fundamentals of talent management are fundamental, so they apply across the board. The cool thing, I think, about the way that I approach strategic talent management is that it is designed based on the philosophy or needs of the business. So the fundamentals are there, but how it's designed to support the enterprise is unique to every enterprise. I mean, it's just like a family has a culture that's unique to itself. A business has a culture that's unique to itself. And I would say that companies that are under 50 million or smaller companies, smaller enterprises, you're kind of working in many ways, I would say, in kind of wearing multiple hats. In larger organizations, there are more opportunities to be more, I guess, specialized in your role. In smaller companies, you need to be able to cover for each other, be limber, be agile, and be able to pivot based on the needs of the talent that you have. So I think in the same way, it's good to know, it's essential to know the strengths and the weaknesses of the people on your team so that you can develop them. But I think it's different in the sense that people in smaller companies are wearing more hats.
That's
And
very
so you
helpful.
have to adapt the program to that.
Sure. So what might be some barriers, Stacy, to people doing talent management well?
Barriers. I think the most pressing barrier is, it's business owners, right? I mean, I think what's also different about my process is different than what other people do in the market is I work through the business owner, and I encourage and basically partner with the business owner or the executive to own the process. So the barriers are when business owners see talent management as an expense or as a cost center rather than an investment. So a symptom of that is when business owners view talent acquisition or recruiting, for example, as kind of a necessary evil, and they kind of put their early or their most inexperienced people on the process of recruiting talent, but then they look at their succession planning and they see it as a board initiative. And these two things, they're the two ends of my strategic talent management process, but if you folded the page, recruiting and succession would touch each other. If you folded that diagram, those two components would touch each other. Recruiting has been sadly, seen as a cost center, and succession planning as something to invest in, and these two things are really part and parcel. The whole process is about building bench strength. So I think the barrier one is that business owners see it as a cost center, not an investment. And I think that business owners have a perspective that if there was a solution to their people problems, they would have it by now. So in some ways, business owners, I think, have given up that there really is a solution. Again, if there was one, wouldn't they know it? And so they've kind of given up on themselves. They've kind of given up on the fact that there really could be a solution. I think that's a barrier. And sincerely hope that the book and the examples in the book and my voice and my coaching in the book is, helps people get out of a rut and see that business owners and the executives are responsible for correcting, the problems of the people problems in their organizations. If they don't do it, nobody will. It's kind of like a mayor of a, business owners aren't just generating revenue. In my estimation, they've really morphed into more like a mayor of a community. There's infrastructure and that needs to be taken care of. There are people, there are training centers, there's health care, there's product, there's equipment, there's expansion. You need to make sure that neighborhood over there in operations isn't eroding while another, and have all of these, I don't know, and another area of the organization isn't kind of flush with funds. You really have to look at the whole organization and make sure that you are taking care of the thing that's most important to you. And I speak to the business owners very directly about that. This is the thing that's most important to you, and if you can't solve your people problems, then if you can't, you have to figure out a way to solve your people problems. It's your responsibility to do that.
Yeah, that's very helpful. So, Stacy, what do you see businesses doing now that's different than what you in your book propose that people should be doing?
Well, I think it's the same ilk of what you just asked. It's people, business leaders who are underfunding talent management processes, that they're not seeing people as the drivers of their revenue or the soldiers of their vision. I think it's seeing talent management in a vacuum. You do recruiting because you have to fill a position. You do performance management because HR somehow has been in a position to tell you that we need a file on all people, and somehow succession planning is your board has gotten on your back and they said we really need you to start looking at your talent because you're at risk if you're not seeing successors. So I think it's when you see it in a vacuum. And what I'm suggesting to business owners is they see this whole process is a process of building your bench. I guess I could use a couple of examples. When I think about, Katie Stone was the head coach of the U.S. Olympic hockey team in 2014, and she was very kind to write an endorsement for my book. And when I imagine her recruiting for her team, I can't imagine her putting her most inexperienced recruiter, sending them out to all these colleges to find hockey players without any criteria, without any experience. I can't imagine Belichick doesn't consider how his performers are going to be performing together, and providing them their quarterback with 6 coaches, a coach for throwing, a coach for running, a coach for aim, a coach for physical fitness. Great teams invest in talent. That's what makes a great team. So I think those are some of the things, and they don't see they don't see building their bench in a vacuum.
Sure, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So talk more about that. I mean, I've heard you talk a lot about investing and that talent management is an investment. So how does talent management matter to the bottom line?
Well, it matters to the bottom line because if you're not doing it right, it's expensive. For every person, as I mentioned, if you are, if you recognize that hiring the wrong person for the job costs you 10 times salary over a 1.5 year period of time, and by the time that person is embedded in your company for, now 18 months, it's more work to get rid of that person, and so you just carry this dead weight. It's costly not to be on top of your talent and not looking at the ways that your talent, not only does the individuals do the function of their position, but they add to other people's success. They bring new ideas. They bring fresh ideas. They're looking beyond the scope of their job. So, again, I think the cost is important and the importance of the investment. But I think maybe what you're asking too is, actually, what is the cost? You know, how do people invest in this? What does that process look like? And I would say usually you know, nobody does this all. You know, nobody makes a total capital investment into strategic planning in one fell swoop. It's incremental. So I might go in and work with a company because they've tried to. For example, I have a client, a 4th-generation company. The 3rd-generation CEO is 69. That was the year he was going to retire, and his son, the VP or general manager, VP of operations, president of operations, was in line to succeed him. But they could not make that transition because the 4th generation, the president, who was going to take over the CEO role, the son, didn't have anybody to backfill him, and they had 2 situations where they had 2 hires had backfired. And so morale was down. The team that was going to be managed by this new person felt like they weren't worthy. They were feeling badly about themselves. Nobody wanted to lead them. And the son couldn't move into the CEO role. It was all backed up because they didn't have bench strength for this one particular role, this critical role. So I came in and I helped them do a successful hire. And it's, you know, I could go on and on about how great this young man is in the business of leading the operations, and how now the son has taken over the CEO role and is in overseas expanding with a new facility because he gets now to be more strategic. So you start with an initial project. This particular project was helping them hire the GM so that the son could move into the CEO role. And that has then led to a number of other, building out a number of other components for strategic talent management. So I would say it's a 3-year process. It's the 18 months where you're building all of the 9 centers of excellence, and then it's the second 18 months that you kind of, you embed all of these processes into the culture. And I think, you know, in my estimation, it's, you know, it's $150,000 to a $300,000 investment over a 3-year period of time, more or less. But just to get your arms around it, it is a capital investment. You don't always spend this when you're building it out. This is to build it out, and you know, it's critical. I mean, you have, some companies have pieces and parts already in place, which would mitigate a little bit of that investment. But I think, you know, once you get it started and you see how when you see how one component naturally moves into that data, naturally supports the next center of excellence, you don't stop the process. You extract data from one, you use it for the next, and your business data, your talent data becomes business intelligence. And you start thinking, how did I ever live without it?
So Stacy, who's involved in that process? So when you're working with business owners, who are the ones who shape the 9 centers of excellence and integrate the talent management platform?
Yeah, what I have found, and it's, of course, it's different for every client, and it should be different for every client. It's not so much that it's customized, it's just organic. How this unfolds for each company is organic to that company. So I don't really customize. We build it based on the needs of the organization. So that said, what I find a lot is once business owners have that, we engage that first project and they're bought in, they start realizing that, yeah, this data, this talent data is meaningful, and it sheds light on a lot of the business practices that I have in place, that they have in place. And then they realize, well, if I'm going to, if I'm going to make this capital investment in building out my talent management process, I better really know what my strategy is. I better build a team that is in line with my long-term strategy for the business. And in that case, again, in that case, we might put a pause on building out the talent management, and I would invite a strategic planning partner. I use a wonderful colleague of mine, Larry Goddard, has built a wonderful process for strategic talent, for strategic planning, and it's a very it's kind of an in and out kind of process. It it's not a bound book that you leave on your bookshelf and it gets dusty. It actually evolves into a series of initiatives, and we get specific leaders that are assigned to those initiatives, and oftentimes one of those initiatives is building out the bench strength and talent management. And I would say that I might engage a management consultant. I might engage somebody who's really great at operations and continuous improvement to make sure that the processes are in place. But all in all, my philosophy and the philosophy that I help my business owners to realize is they have to understand what their expectations are from people, what their philosophy is about people, what their leadership style is, and that philosophy then envelops the 9 centers of excellence, which are really designed and built with a number of different managers and stakeholders in the organization. And once those are built, they're implemented by the managers, by managers throughout the organization, and supported by human resources. So human resources is in the service of these processes that are built and designed for the managers, because managers are really responsible for developing their talent. So it's the leader's philosophy, it's designing the 9 centers of excellence that are implemented and used by the managers, and then supported by human resources.
Great. Thanks so much. So, Stacy, I'm curious about something. You're a clinical psychologist and a coach, an executive coach. So why did you choose to write about talent management?
Yes, it's funny. I've been in business for 20 years with a degree in clinical psychology, and probably 6 years ago I decided to come out of the closet as a clinical psychologist, right? I mean, I think I've been trying for a long time to come to the market first as a business leader and second as a clinical psychologist, and I realized that really the psychology of how people operate and how they relate and how they achieve their goals or not achieve their goals is critical to business. And so I have evolved. Even we're all in it together. So here I am talking about coaching leaders, business owners, and I will tell you that we're all in together, and that I, as a business leader and a coach, am evolving also. And I've evolved into this thinking that I bring psychological strategies to business owners, really to evolve their self-awareness and to make sure that they're part of the solution and not part of the problem. And ultimately how to build a bench so that they can use their resources to achieve their goals. That's what business owners do. They use their people to achieve their vision and their goals. So I think for me, talent management was just a natural outgrowth from my first book. It allowed me to coach in the pages, but also to deliver something that's practical for leaders to use right away. Yeah, I mean, I'm very committed to middle market business owners. They matter to their employees, they matter to their employees' families, they matter to their communities, they matter to the market. I'm very beholden to business owners, and I want the best for them. And at once I revere them, and at the same time I really want to kick their butts and help them achieve the things that they say they want to achieve. So I think being a clinical psychologist in business with 20 years of a business background makes me a unique resource for them.
Got it. Well, I have a really long comment that came in from someone, and I'm hoping that I can share it with you to see if you have some insight. So someone on the call says that her husband or her son joined a small company a few years ago as his first full-time job. They hired him over a candidate with more experience. They like his passion to learn and get the job done well, and the company made a good choice because he's exceeding his boss's expectations. Now he's being aggressively recruited by another organization. The job seems challenging, more challenging and more interesting. So I guess the question is, as a business owner, how do you prevent this same thing from happening, where you hire someone on and they do great work and then they're later recruited by others? Any insights in that? into that?
Yeah, well, first of all, congratulations. I mean, that sounds like a proud mom on the phone, and good for you. I mean, what a nice thing to know about your son and his accomplishments, and good for him for doing such a great job. Um, business owners spend, and I do help business owners think about retaining talent. How do you retain top talent? And I think there are two ways to think about this. One is you let them know that they're important to the organization, and you let them know not only with compensation but with opportunity. Opportunity to help develop new ideas, opportunity to sit at the table, exposure to maybe your board, maybe exposure to senior leaders in the organization. Certainly investing in additional coaching or opportunities to visit a local university's business, some business classes. There are significant ways to help top talent stay invested in your company. But they need to see the business owner's vision, and they also need to see what their opportunities are for growth and development. And they also, that talent needs to be, I think, also reasonable with what it takes to grow up in an organization, what it takes to evolve in your role. The other way, so those are a couple ways that a business can work to retain talent. Be clear with your vision, be selective but also forthcoming with learning opportunities in the organization and outside the organization, and make sure you have a career path for individuals. A small company where you get to report eventually into the CEO is very different than being, a director in a large company and never having access to the decision makers. So I think that's interesting. On the flip side, I would say, when you develop top talent, they do become marketable. And one of the ways to think about great talent is if they move on from your company to bigger and better things, you have to be proud of yourself for being, for being responsible for the development of individuals, whether they stay at your company or not. And I know that's probably kind of a little pie in the sky, maybe a little rose-colored glasses. But when I think about coaching people and helping them to exceed and excel, sometimes people move on, and they move on to bigger, better things. And it is their prerogative, and it is, I would say it's a responsibility of every business owner to think about growing talent, retaining them, and also sometimes seeing them off into the sunset.
Sure. I guess there's always going to be that risk. No matter how well you're developing talent, people can and will choose to move on.
But I would say, Becky, one thing, too, is I don't think business owners are very good at talking about how exciting their organizations are. I work with this company. It's a relatively small company on the east side of Cleveland, and they think they're a humdrum organization. They think they're they're just plodding along. They're doing good enough. Their numbers are impeccable. Their facility is impeccable. Their people are hard charging, but they don't sell the value of working in their company well. They don't see the value of working in their company well, and they imagine that the grass is greener somewhere else. So they don't see how exciting it is. I've seen more Fortune 500 executives coming out of their, I wouldn't say cushy, but their positions in corporate, and long for the opportunity to be in an organization where they can actually impact change. And middle market companies have that opportunity. I mean, I think probably the biggest concern I have sometimes with business owners retaining talent is they don't know how wonderful, they don't know how to talk about their vision and the opportunities in their organizations for people.
Got it. Yeah, that's helpful. So I want to go back to something you said a little while ago, Stacy. You were talking about bringing psychological strategies to business leaders. Can you talk a little bit about one or two of those strategies that you bring to business leaders and how they help?
Well, some of the strategies are very secret. No, I'm teasing. Some of the strategies really are the capacity to connect, the capacity capacity to connect with other people. So I think that in coaching, I help business leaders and business owners connect with me for honest self-analysis. So I think one of the strategies is learning the capacity or practicing the capacity for honest self-analysis. And I think that's done in connection with a coach or with a trusted advisor. And I think it needs to be honed and developed. It translates then to how that business leader interacts with everybody else on their team. I think psychological strategy is really the curiosity really for a continuous dialogue, for circulating untested ideas that you then refine, and then you're capable of delivering them to the world with conviction. So I think it's the curiosity, practicing ideas, formulating ideas in a coaching conversation, and then building conviction around the ideas that you want people to get their head around and to help you to realize. It's definitely introspection, the ability to look inward at the impact of your words and actions on others. As leaders, it's really it's one thing to have the freedom to say whatever you want and do whatever you want, but it's more the responsibility to stay very conscientious and introspective about how your words and actions impact others. That's what leaders need to do. And reflection, to look back on unintended and unintended consequences of your decisions and have the ability to incorporate lessons learned for future decisions. I mean, I would say there are lots of analogies to sports and business, and the one analogy that I think fits the best that I haven't heard really is that in sports there's a lot of watching tape. That's in business, that's kind of reflection, watching tape. And I think business owners need to spend more time, and it's a strong psychological capability to reflect on your decisions and then to incorporate those lessons learned into future decisions. And I would say tapping your passion and understanding what your aspirations are and creating focused passion and energy that propels you to do great things and to achieve the success that you want and deserve. I think those are the 5 critical psychological strategies that I help business owners and business leaders develop, and I think that puts them in a position to succeed in any situation and under any conditions.
So let's see if we can recap those for those who are listening. Stacy, I have self-analysis, introspection, reflection, and tapping your passion. That's 4. What did I miss?
Yeah, the continuous dialogue, circulating untested ideas and refining them and developing conviction around them. What I find is that business owners don't have an opportunity just to think out loud, so some of their best ideas never get refined and they never get brought to the market or to the leadership team because they're half-baked. You don't want to necessarily bring an idea to your executive team or your leadership team that you haven't had a chance to refine. And in coaching, business owners have a chance to refine some ideas that by themselves they don't think are that relevant or they don't think are that well defined, and coaching allows business owners to do that.
That makes a lot of sense, that ability to speak out loud.
Without any repercussions.
In a safe place, for sure.
Yeah.
So we only have a few minutes left, and I want to make sure that we loop back to all your contact information on the last slide. So what I'm going to do now, Stacy, is give you the chance to say one thing that you haven't had a chance to say yet, because there are many of the questions that we had scoped to talk about that we didn't get to yet. So what one piece of advice or what one kind of, I don't know, summarizing statement do you most want people to hear from you as we wrap up this call today?
Well, it's a big thought. I learned it. I developed this idea when I went to a conference. Actually, thanks for the question, Becky. It's a good one. And I went to a conference. It was sponsored by the National Center for the Middle Market, which is out of OSU's Fisher School of Business. And they talked about this cutting-edge research about the middle market. And I say this with bold letters. The middle market in the United States is the 5th largest economy in the world. So the middle market in the United States is the 5th largest economy in the world. They employ, or you all employ, everybody on the call employs 60% of the U.S. population. And yet you do not have an elected official leading you. You do not have currency, your own currency. You don't have your own national anthem. You don't have sovereign land, and yet you are the U.S. you are the 5th largest economy in the world. And my feeling about this is that the business owners in the United States are heroes. Anybody who generates revenue and employs people are heroes in this economy. And so your business owners are already starting as elite performers. And what's ever getting in their way is solvable. Everything that gets in a business owner's way is solvable, even when they are getting in their own way. And so I want to help preserve this wealth engine in the United States. I want to help business owners preserve their wealth engines for their families, for their employees, and for their communities. The middle market is generative, and I'm committed to helping business owners succeed.
Okay, so here's a last-minute question from Betsy, who wants to know how you define the middle market. I think we have time for you to answer that.
There's middle market, and I categorize that as, well, formally middle market is 10 million to $1 billion. But in these numbers, I'm also including the majority of closely held, family-owned businesses that are anywhere from $1 million to $1 billion. So the small enterprises in the middle market.
Got it. Thanks so much. Stacy, this has been a really fun hour, and I know I've learned so much from you, and I have a lot to think about, especially as it relates to those 9 centers of excellence. So I hope that everybody who's on today's call will take a moment to check out your book at talentmindsetbook.com. When you get to talentmindsetbook.com, you're going to find some easy ways to share some great quotes from Stacy's book. You can also find links to buy the book on Amazon. Also, if you're a customer of Kindle Unlimited, as I am, you can actually read the Kindle version of Stacy's book for free. So I encourage everybody who's listening today to check out more about Stacy and her work at her website. And thanks so much for sharing this hour with us today.
Thank you, Becky, and thank you, everybody on the call. I appreciate it.